Welcome, friends, to the 12 Days of Advisor Self Care. This is a series that started 2 years ago. So, this is our third year running, and it was inspired by my friend, my buddy, Stoy Hall, who does a similar series called The 12 Days of Giving. I encourage you to go and check out his work. So, a little bit different. It's more client facing. This is advisor facing. But nonetheless, I always like to attribute credit to him because he deserves it. He's awesome. This is day one of the 12 days of advisor self care. And today we're going to be talking about setting goals as an advisor. Now, all day long with clients, maybe not all day long, but you work with clients on setting financial goals in your work, in your job. That's what you do. And you're probably really, really good at it. But today, because this is the 12 days of advisor self care, we are going to be focusing on setting goals for you. How do you set goals? Now, when I talk about setting goals for advisors, and more specifically, why this is a form of self care, there are 5 points here that I want you to remember. The first is that you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you do not have enough in your cup, if your cup is not filled enough, right? How can you give to your clients? And setting goals, being able to focus on at least one time a year what truly matters to you and laying those out in paper form or digital form really allows you then to focus that time and energy and hopefully even prioritize it throughout the year so that you can pour from a cup that has something in it. All right, number two is breaking the cycle of reactivity. Now, what exactly kind of does that mean? I find that for a lot of us, myself included, sometimes we're in this constant state of just reacting. And maybe it's because we're on autopilot, right? We're just living, we're just going, we're just doing what our planner tells us, what the schedule, how the schedule lays out. But oftentimes it can really create this reactive sense to life. And sometimes that can put us at risk for being able to look back with regret or, gosh darn it, I really wish that I had accomplished that. This would have been the time to be able to do that. And sitting down and creating goals for yourself allows you and your family, you and your partner to break that cycle of reactivity and to get really intentional with what matters most to you. All right, number three, as far as why goal setting is a form of self care, you're modeling what you preach. So when you're meeting with clients, you're setting goals. Maybe they're financial milestones, maybe they're yearly ones, what have you, but you are looking at their financial whole picture and you are setting goals for your clients. Being able to do that for yourself allows you to practice what you preach. And generally, it feels good when we are practicing what we preach, right? Instead of just doing for others, but ooh, I'm actually not taking my own advice here. I'm not doing the thing that I kind of say is really important to be able to do. All right, number four is creating boundaries through clarity. Goal setting, anytime we set down and we look at and examine our goals, it can help create clarity with what matters to us, right? What do we really, really want maybe this year in 2026? And when we can create that clarity, it allows us to examine our life, our situation, our day to day, our lifestyle, our relationships, what have you, and to ask ourselves then, where do we need to put boundaries in place? Maybe it's with your time. Maybe it's with your money and your resources. I don't know. But when you can create goals, when you can sit down and name what it is, what is the thing that is most important to you that you really want to focus on in this next year, that clarity comes, and then you are able to put boundaries or guardrails, whatever you want to call it, in place for yourself. All right, the last one here, number five, as far as why goal setting is a form of self care, is that when you're doing this with your partner, I encourage you to do this individually, but I really, really, really want you to do this with your partner and maybe even your family as a whole, because when you do this, it allows you to reconnect with your partner and maybe even with your family. And being able to take some time, even if it's just once a year, and to have that conversation around what do we want to focus on in the next year. It creates that sense of connection between the two of you. Now, today, for the first day, day one of Advisor Self Care, the 12 days of Advisor Self Care, that last point was about reconnecting with your partner. And so, what I thought would be cool, I don't know, maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong here. What I thought would be cool is if I showed you and gave you kind of a sneak peek for how Clayton and I, how we do our goal setting. Now, this is something that I will give full credit to Clayton as far as what are the origins of this ritual in our marriage, in our relationship. I met Clayton when I was a sophomore in college. And I would say that I was the fun one in the relationship, and he was the very serious, like studious one there. And what impressed me the most about him is how he would write down these yearly goals for himself. Now, it wasn't that I did not have any goals. I also have always been a very ambitious person, going after the things that I've wanted, a high achiever, I would say. But I just wasn't diligent, or even maybe even knew like writing down your goals is kind of a thing. And so when I met him, I was very attracted to this idea that he was writing down goals. Fast forward, we were married. I was 22. We got married right out of college. And the first year of our marriage, I remember he was like, okay, we're going to do our annual goals. This is something that I do every year, which I kind of knew. And he's like, we're going to do it together. And let me tell you, it was one of the best conversations, probably one of the most interesting ones too, that we had. And it's a conversation that we have done every year since. Clayton and I have been married since 2008, so it is now 2025. You can do the math on that, 17 years going on 18. So we've been doing this together as a couple for 17 years, every year in December. And what's really fun is that I have all of that captured here in this handy dandy little journal. Now, the first 2 years that we did it, we scribbled it out on paper, and I didn't have a cute little journal, but I got smart and I was like, hey, this is kind of a fun activity. We should capture this so that it's just in the same place, location every time we do it. So what I'm showing you here, this is our our 2026 goals. In addition, what has evolved is we've also started creating 3 and 5 year goals. Now, if I go back to kind of the beginning, I don't really want to. I'm actually kind of scared to go back to the very beginning. We kind of created more like long term, short term. As our relationship evolved, we started really naming that into 3 and 5 year goals, as we, moved on kind of in our profession and in our businesses there. And so every year we take time in December. Sometimes it's like the very beginning of January, just depending upon life. But there is this time period right now, right here, that's going on, that we sit down and we talk about what is our focus area for the next year. Now, we have done this a lot of different ways. We've done it on car rides to when we're traveling or visiting family. We call it windshield time. And so sometimes, in the throes of life for young kids, if we're traveling on the road, we might say, oh, we've got 3 hours in the car together, or we've got 5 hours, depending upon where we're going. Let's use that time while we're together and we can talk through things. This last year, we actually we were happened to be kind of traveling, dropping our daughter off to hang out with her aunt, and so we took the time to go to a really nice lunch And it was like 4 or 5 hours. We had a nice like afternoon. We did lunch. We went to a coffee shop and we mapped out all of our goals. And it was a really, really nice time together. And so when we sit down and when we start mapping out these goals, you're probably like, okay, great story. Now what do you do? We usually look at and review what was last year. What did we map out last year? What did this previous year look like? And we'll go through like line items. So we went through like last year, like for 2025, and we looked at, did we go on our vacation trips? Did we do all of those? Did we put money? One of them last year was allocating more money towards a business loan that we have. Did we do that? Did we max out, our retirement accounts, our Roths, our 401ks? Did we have some of the conversations with the kids that we wanted to have? So we'll go through and we'll look at like whether or not did we do these things and talk about were there any barriers. If we didn't, were there barriers that got in the way to us being able to do it? No judgment, just simply like facts, right? Like we didn't do this because, well, we just really didn't make it a priority, or maybe something changed. Last year in particular, we were supposed to go, we had told the kids we'd take them to Hawaii for our big family vacation, and we didn't. We actually took them to Norway and to London because some things had come about and changed that plan, changed that course of action to where we changed our vacation. So sometimes it's a positive, right? Sometimes it's a, hey, we didn't do those quarterly conversations that we wanted to with the kids because I don't know. We just didn't. Maybe there's just not a good reason. We didn't prioritize it. We just didn't do it. And there's no shame. There's no judgment. It just is what it is. It's facts. That's at least how we try to keep the conversation. We'll also then go back and we'll look at, so I'll show you here. We have mapped out 3 and 5 year goals. And so I kind of organize it here as like in 3 years. So in 2025, we did 3-year goals. Well, 3 years would have been 2028. Okay. So what were the goals we had there? And so we'll go back and review like what were the 3-year goals as of last year? What were the 5-year goals? And so we do this kind of review reflection process. First to kind of start out, and prime really the conversation there. And you may do this like with your business too. A lot of business owners will do this. They'll, go into, if they're doing any kind of yearly planning, they'll go and they'll do some reflection. And so when you're sitting down and creating goals, I think it can be really helpful to go back and to look at that reflection piece, that reflection aspect. And then from there, we look at, okay, what is our 2026 focus? What from last year or the previous 3 and 5 year goals do we need to pull into now 2026? And so what I can start to tell you is, when we had our 3-year goals as of last year. So we said, hey, by 2028, we're going to need new vehicles, at least 1, probably 2 new vehicles. Well, 2025 came and we did not get new vehicles. 2026 is coming and it's that time. We need a new vehicle. And so we have now put for 2026, although it's a little bit further down the list than what I wanted, for 2026, it says down there, new car. New vehicle. That is on our list. Now, what I will say is that when we map out kind of that 2026 focus, there are a few things that we just always like to put on there, and they just stay on there, like no matter what. It is always a goal every single year, and that is maxing out our accounts, maxing out like our 401ks and our Roths. And so that's usually like number 1 every year is, can we max this out? That is what we want our focus to be. And in more recent years, it's been paying down chunks of debt around a business loan. And so those are just there. Like we know those, we want those there. They're important to us because they help to reach a longer term goal. And so they're just kind of always there. And you may have goals like that for yourself. Maybe it is around some kind of financial spending as a couple, or maybe it's a vacation. One of our, kind of now, at least in the last 5 years ish, is our annual beach trip. That just always goes on our goals, is that we want to do our annual beach trip. And so it may not be like a savings or a debt repayment type of goal that's always on there. Maybe it's a beach trip. Health and wellness is also another one that maybe that's one of your just non-negotiable like goals. It is always on here for us as a couple. So I might encourage you to think about some of these, like what are our non-negotiable goals or focus areas that are just always on there, and let's just write them down. Let's put them there. From there, Clayton and I kind of take now our goal or yearly goal or focus area into some different categories. So we have like the financial ones, like what are the like financial goals this year that we're focused on? The new vehicle I talked about, that is certainly one that's on our list. The savings and the maxing out, accounts. We also have a few renovations this year that we would like to look at doing some updates. There's some financial impact. It's outside of our like normal kind of budget cadence. And so we'll need to be looking, at that from a financial. So we kind of look at, hey, are there any like big kind of financial ones that maybe need to go under here? Vacations is another one, trips. And then we look at kind of another or a different category, and that is around, I would say like relationships, like quality of relationships, lifestyle, like well-being, like it kind of falls under this, maybe there's some financial aspect of it. But it is probably more about us just taking the time and being intentional in doing it. And so, for those of you who may, have some personal insight just into Clayton and I. We have two kids, they're preteens. Now in 2026, they will be 12 and 14, which makes my chest tighten a little bit because, oh my goodness, they're getting older than what I would like. So knowing that they're 12 and going to be 12 and 14, some of the goals this year for us are to continue with conversations with them around, things like peer pressure, drugs, alcohol, sex, quality of relationships, safety, digital safety, like just making sure that we're intentional around having some of these conversations throughout the year. Now, Cam and Abby probably don't appreciate that being a goal every year, but that's kind of the downside of having a therapist as a mom and a financial planner as a dad. That just kind of stinks for them. But those are kind of the goals that really aren't financially based, but they are important. They're important to me. They're important to Clayton because we want to make sure that we are intentional about how we raise our kids and also setting them up for success. And so, from a place of maybe values, from a place of, goals, like being able to have that on our list of focus areas is something that we do. There's also like Clayton enjoys hunting and fishing. I don't. Those are hobbies that he does, but there is a time component to it. And so one of the distinctions that we like to make is that for things like hunting and fishing for Clayton, that is a Clayton thing. He loves it. He enjoys it. However, there is an impact to me and to the kids. And so for individual like goals or individual things where there is a like financial impact or a big time commitment impact, we like to include it into our joint goals for the year. And some of that is because with hunting and fishing, he might be gone for several days. This last year, he went up to Wisconsin to be with family, which is wonderful. It's great. I want him to be able to do that. I don't want to do that. He's more than welcome to go do it without me. But it does impact me in the sense that I have to make sure that, as the other parent, that I don't schedule speaking events around those time periods, or make sure that I'm here and that I'm present so that I can be the parent that is taking care of the kids during that time. So even though it's a Clayton goal, there is impact there for for me and for the family. And so we kind of like to say, hey, like if it's an individual goal again, but it's really going to have big impact on the family, albeit financial or time, like it really does need to be a shared goal then in that sense. This upcoming year in 2026, I turn 40. And so I would like to have a larger birthday celebration. And so there's impact there on the financial side of things for the family. Even though it's for me, it will be impactful. So when you're creating these goals together as a couple, just kind of going back over some of the things I've said, a few things is, creating just those non-negotiables there for yourself, or for you guys as a couple. Maybe they're financial, maybe they're vacation, what have you. What are those non-negotiables? What are the things this year where maybe there's some financial impact? Renovations, maybe they are trips, maybe it's spending, saving, I don't know, what have you, but where there's just larger financial impact. What are maybe the more, relational goals that maybe you have? If it's spending more time with your kids, well, what does that look like? Even maybe kind of narrow, funneling down that a little bit. But spending more time with your kids, like that could be qualitative, right? But if that's important, like put it on there. Maybe it's having conversations with your kids, like for Clayton and or even like well-being, health and well-being, there. I didn't put this on there, or I didn't say much about this, but health and wellness, right, is something that is important to Clayton and I. And so we don't put it on there as like it's a non-negotiable, but like there's just individual pieces to it that we really leave off of like our joint financial goals, because what it looks like for me is different than what it looks like for Clayton. This last year, I hired a nutrition coach to kind of help support some areas where I didn't have a lot of information. There was a financial impact there. And during the middle of the year, when I kind of had this idea of like, hey, I really would like some nutritional support, that was something that there was a financial component, but it supported my health and well-being. And Clayton and I had a conversation about it. And so there might be things, I guess I say, that where things come up, knowing that health and wellness is important to both of you is great. But for Clayton and I, we keep, for the most part, those some of those separate on like the individual side. Okay, the last thing there, that I would mention when you are doing and setting up these goals, is to think about just impact there, and it goes along with some of the individual pieces I was mentioning. If they're individual goals, but they impact the family from a larger financial piece or even a time commitment piece, they really need to be shared goals, and both of you really need to be in alignment with that. Clayton he's very gracious, and he's, for the most part, really fantastic about letting me know or including me in that conversation if he's wanting to go out hunting or if he's wanting to go out fishing. If there's going to be some kind of a time commitment there that may impact me, he's usually really great about that. And so, but it has to be a shared goal. Like I have to also be supportive of him and wanting him to do that, because he wouldn't be able to if I wasn't on board with it. At least not to the extent that he would like to, I should say. And so, while some of these goals, when we're mapping them out with our partner, they might be individual, I do think that it is important to be on the same page and to be supporting each other in those places. The last thing that I would say when we're looking at goals, at least how Clayton and I do it, and I've touched on this a little bit, is we like to map out kind of our 3 and 5 year goals here. And so what always gets me every time we do this is that I will put actually like how old we are going to be and how old our kids will be. And so like for each one, it'll say that, I will be a certain age. So like in 2029, like how old will I be? How old will the kids be? And I hate looking at that because it always makes me so sad. What's really interesting is that for 2031, I'm not going to get teary, I promise, but for 2031, son will be graduating high school. And so that this year hit me really, really hard because in 5 years, he will be graduating high school and starting college. And as a parent, maybe for those of you who have had kids that have launched, like, how precious like that time is that you have with them. And so what is really helpful for Clayton and I in doing this and being able to look into the future for the 3 and the 5 year goal piece is like, hey, this is how old our kids are going to be. Okay. Oh my gosh. What do we need? 5 years is not a long time. So, what do we need to be doing now, if anything, to be preparing for that time? Or what's left that we, have wanted to do and maybe haven't gotten around to it because there's this mentality of, oh, we have so much time. And so some of the things on that 5 year or between now and the 5 year goal mark, we know that we're going to need new vehicles. We know and kind of want our kids to be working and getting their first jobs. We know we need to do some university trips for them to go around and see colleges and university. We would like to take some really meaningful trips and vacations with them before they head off, before they launch. But more importantly, Clayton and I need to start thinking about an empty nester plan because what are we going to do? Abby, our daughter, she's 17 months younger than Cam. And so 2032, so in 6 years, we will be empty nesters. So what are we going to do? The culmination of knowing that Cam is going to graduate and that we will only have a year with our daughter and then we're going to be empty nesters, really kind of hit us this year. And it was like I know I'm not supposed to say bad words, but like oh crap. Like we need to start thinking a little bit about what that chapter will look like for us. And so, for this conversation that Clayton and I had, it didn't get written down or anything, but we even started to think like, he asked me like, are you going to want to move? Are you are you going to want to move from our house once the kids leave? Are you going to want to kind of crank up your work and do more? And the same for him too. So it led to just this really nice conversation around, what kind of beyond 5 or 6 years might look like. And sure, we've had that conversation before around what do you want to do like when you retire, but this was different because there were some updates there. Previously, we had talked about we'd love to move up to Boone, North Carolina, where we graduated college together, our alma mater, and live up there. Well, when we had that conversation this time, I was like, I have no desire to go and live up in the mountains. I just want to continue to rent places. I don't know if I want a residence up there, whether it's a second house or a primary residence. I don't know if that's in my vision now. And Clayton agreed, but several years ago, it was. And so what sitting down and having this time, what it allows you to do from a place of self-care, I went through kind of those 5 things, but as a couple, it allows you to update that map that you have of each other. And so, in terms of creating connection, in terms of building intimacy with one another, when you sit down every year and when you go through these goals of what do we want to focus on in the next year? What do we want the next 3 to 5 years look like? How has the last year gone? It really does help to update that friendship map, that love map that you have with one another, which is invaluable to your relationship. It's going to ultimately create a deeper sense of connection and intimacy. And that, my friends, is absolutely a form of self-care and will allow you to keep that cup full. It will allow you to set boundaries. It will create clarity, all of the things that I mentioned earlier. As we kind of wrap up our time here, I know I threw a lot of things at you around goal setting, around advisor self care, and how that connects there. And so, what I would ask of you is to just take this as information. If you have a process that you're already doing, you're already implementing, that is wonderful. That is great. If it works for you, fantastic. If you are looking for a few different ways to maybe update that process. Maybe there's some little nuggets that you can take from this conversation or different perspectives, and maybe that's helpful. If you don't have a process for sitting down and doing goal setting, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to share in just a like document format, just kind of how we do it, right? Here's our yearly goals. Here's our 3 and 5. Here are some of the reflection questions that we ask, each other. I am happy to help you in any way. But more importantly, I want you to start to look at setting goals as a form or as a way of how you can take care of yourself, not just here in the holiday season, but all year round. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so glad that you're here for this series, and I hope that you enjoy the next 11 days. Until tomorrow, my friends, be well.